Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're diving headfirst into, well, let's just call it the curious case of Sri Lanka's finances, shall we?
Sounds intriguing already.
It all started, as these things often do, with a headline. Sri Lanka's foreign reserves have apparently surged, hitting a cool $6 billion. Now that sounds pretty impressive.
6 billion, that's a big number. Definitely catches the eye.
Exactly. But hold on a second. Before we start celebrating, we need to, put on our skeptical hats. Like, is this as rosy as it sounds?
Yeah.
Luckily, I've got our economic expert here to help us unpack all of this.
Well, you're right to approach this with a healthy dose of skepticism. A jump in reserves is usually a good thing, a sign of economic health even. But, and this is a big but, the source of those reserves is crucial.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's like finding a $20 bill tucked into your pocket.
Yeah.
You're happy, sure, but then the question hits you, where did this come from? It's not just about the money, it's about the how, right?
That's a great way to put it. And in Sri Lanka's case, a big chunk of that increase comes from something called a currency swap line with China.
Swap line sounds a little like financial jargon. Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. Imagine you need some cash, so you borrow from a friend, right? A currency swap is kind of similar, but on a much larger scale, country to country. In this case, China lends Sri Lanka a significant amount of foreign currency, and in return, Sri Lanka agrees to pay it back later, usually with interest. So it's a quick way to boost those reserves, but it does come with certain, shall we say, obligations.
Interesting. So not exactly found money then. And speaking of interesting, our source mentions the Sri Lankan rupee is actually gaining value, appreciating against the US dollar. 7%. That's got to be connected to this reserve situation somehow, right?
You hit the nail on the head. It's absolutely connected. A stronger rupee usually goes hand in hand with a healthy reserve position. Here's how it works. The central bank has been strategically buying up foreign currency, which increases the demand for the rupee. And, well, just like with any commodity, higher demand equals a higher price.
So it's a deliberate move by the central bank to, bolster their currency, not just a random stroke of luck.
Exactly. A calculated strategy.
Fascinating stuff. But let's shift gears for a moment. I mean, why should someone listening to this, maybe on their way to work, care about Sri Lanka's reserves? What's the big takeaway for the average person?
Because it offers a glimpse into the complex world of global finance, how countries manage their money, especially in a world, let's be honest, grappling with debt. And Sri Lanka, they've had their share of economic ups and downs.
Right. They've been through some tough times.
Exactly. These reserves are absolutely crucial. They're a lifeline for managing debt, for facilitating trade, and yes, even for things like attracting tourists.
Makes sense. It all ties together. But you mentioned debt, and our source also mentioned some conditions tied to that Chinese swap. I'm going to be honest, I'm no economist, so break it down for me. What kind of strings are attached to this deal?
Think of it like this. Sometimes when you borrow from a friend, there's an unspoken expectation of a favor in return, right? Now, with these large-scale swap lines, while the specifics are usually kept under wraps, there are often certain conditions.
Okay, so like what? Give us an example.
Well, for example, China might require Sri Lanka to use the funds for specific projects which, coincidentally or not, might favor Chinese companies. Or they might have some influence over Sri Lanka's trade policies. It's complex.
So there's this whole geopolitical layer to it all. It's not just about pure economics.
Precisely. It highlights the complex relationship between these two countries and the influence China wields in the global financial system.
Wow, it's amazing how something like a headline about reserves can spiral into this intricate story.
That's the thing about economics. It's all interconnected.
So to recap, Sri Lanka's reserves are up, partly due to this agreement with China. Their currency is on the rise. But there's this whole web of complexities and potential downsides we have to consider.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is that this situation, while specific to Sri Lanka, reflects a much broader trend. As the global landscape shifts and economies intertwine, how other countries navigate these choppy financial waters, balancing reserves, debt, and these strategic partnerships, well, that's a question we all need to consider.
It really makes you think. Okay, everyone, that's our deep dive for today. Hopefully you learned something new. And as always, stay curious.
Until next time.